above our sports riots.
I think the French definitely protest and riot more than we do.
Crazy sports riot.
Are we denying that they've happened?
I'm not denying that they've happened. I'm just saying, I'm actually trying to think because I remember it being more of a thing than it has been recently. Like you have exuberant stuff that I'm sure involves property damage, like when the Eagles win and you have everybody spilling out into the streets, but it's not lighting cars on fire. Lighting cars on fire, that's like the hallmark of the sports riot, right? Flipping a car and lighting it on fire.
Yeah, it's been a minute since that. It's funny that like the first team that comes to your head is the Eagles because it's exactly who I was thinking of too.
Okay, so noting that there's a part of my brain that's missing the sports bit and that I wish I had it, noting all of this.
Yeah.
Is this something sports people suppress? Like, when you win, do you want to flip shit over and set it on fire, but we just suppress it and other people aren't able to hold it in? Like, where does this come from?
Drunk dudes.
Yeah. It's just drunk dudes and they're just filled with dopamine and stuff. So
yeah, if you're like really excited and you've been drinking all day and then next thing you know, there's a bunch of dudes who are like, let's flip the car. And then you're like, let's flip the fucking car. And then next thing you know, you're flipping a car.
You know what? Thank you. This wasn't a sports thing. Like I understand frat guys. I understand frat guys. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. You clarified this for me. Sports fans, I appreciate, I apologize for implying this is a sports thing. It's a drunk guy thing. I get it.
Well, it's also the vibe that gets people to storm the Capitol. It's just like someone goes like, let's do the thing. We can do the thing. Let's do the thing. And like, next thing you know.
I think they were sober when they stormed the Capitol.
Jen, I agree. The FBI also initiates flipping cars during Super Bowl celebrations.
Oh, boy. You are conspiratorial today. I'm excited for this episode.
Oh, it's just laughs. It's mostly just laughs unless I'm proven right in 20 years. But it's mostly just jokes. 99% just jokes. Although apparently they are looking into the pipe bombs. The FBI is looking into the pipe.
You are still obsessed with these pipe bombs.
I am. Why would anybody not be obsessed with the thing that was a gigantic nationwide manhunt and then everybody has memory hold?
Because they didn't go off, and so no one cares.
Are
you talking about the stripper in Florida back in like
2018?
That like lived in a van that looked like if Steve Bannon were a transformer? Are we talking about that guy or are we talking about something else?
No. So right before the certification of the election, there was an FBI announcement that they had credible evidence that there was going to be violence at the Capitol during the certification of the vote, right? Mm-hmm. They then, the night before, said that there was evidence that people had planted pipe bombs on the day at the headquarters of the RNC and the DNC. And so do you remember when AOC put out the video where she was like talking about how traumatic it was during January 6th?
No.
Do you remember that?
I try not to watch her if I can.
So this was a little Tempest in a Teapot where a bunch of people were like saying like, oh, she's lying. She's doing it for clicks because she wasn't even near where the Capitol was being stormed. So why would cops come in and sweep her office? That's true. She was not there, but she did get evacuated. That whole building did get evacuated because there was a report of a pipe bomb at the DNC, which is next to these office buildings for Congress people. So the people did sweep her and she was scared that she was getting kicked out. It just didn't have anything to do with the actual storming of the Capitol, which kind of got conflated. So anyway, there is evidence that there was somebody that dropped a pipe bomb in both these places. The FBI knew about it. The Secret Service knew about it, yet Kamala Harris was allowed to be in the DNC while they knew that there was a thing. There's also footage of Secret Service and FBI just standing around allegedly where they knew the pipe bomb was. And now it's been totally memory hold. So I'm not saying that anything is nefarious per se. I'm just saying that when there's an alert that there's going to be pipe bombs that explode the RNC and the DNC, I would like to know more about it. And I feel like I have not. It just kind of went away. And I don't know. I'm a curious guy.
Listen,
there was a hearing about it. I watched it for you. I was going to make a whole episode about it, except it was a giant nothing burger. They showed the video of the guys dropping off the bombs. The bombs did nothing and they know nothing and the end. So
Justin,
until we find out.
Listen, Justin.
Yeah.
Now that I live here in the DC area, let me just put some fears to rest here. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the FBI did some bad shit in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, and the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
In some of the 2000s. But they fixed it all now. Don't worry about it.
Well, now that Dan Bongino's there.
Dan Bongino's there, man.
We're fine.
A dude who used to follow me on Twitter for some reason is now assistant director of the FBI.
He probably liked your silly videos.
He probably liked my silly videos. He probably saw some funny stuff.
He probably still does.
He might do. He doesn't follow me anymore. So I don't know. And that happened before he became assistant FBI director. I don't know. Maybe there could be idiots and mellifluous people in both camps. Like
mellifluous. That's a word I've never heard.
Salute to the hardworking men and women of the FBI. They are every FBI agent that I have met has comported themselves in the same way that the most honorable people I have met in my life, which are mostly Mormons and Boy Scouts, often the same. But they are very, very nice, upright. They gave me good vibes. They did not seem nefarious at all. So I don't know who or where. I've heard other rumors of people inside that have done stuff that, didn't cover the agency in glory. The FBI people that I met were very apologetic for their history, for what it's worth. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's been any stuff. I like to know more stuff. Call me crazy.
I'm skeptical of all camps. I'm skeptical of the FBI. I'm also skeptical of the Trump people. With the FBI, I have no doubt the folks you've met are very good people, and probably the vast majority of people in the FBI are Eagle Scouts with handguns that are making America safe. That being said, though, the FBI does have a kind of spotty record, and to my knowledge, there's been no serious structural overhaul that's ever changed anything, that's ever changed in the incentive structures that are there. It's just, we're going to promise to be better. That makes me very suspicious. As somebody who believes in limited government and the possibility of tyranny, I think I would be amenable to splitting up many of the duties the FBI currently has and or just stopping them. I'm a bit worried. Now, all that being said, though, could one of you, I'm not saying this is your opinion. I don't think it's your opinion, but I want somebody to make the best case argument for Trump on January 6th for me. Based on what I'm about to say, like if I'm making the best case argument for Trump, the very best, like he didn't plan anything. He had a rally. He did not intend to send a riot to the Capitol to put pressure on Mike Pence to overturn the election. That all of that was something that was beyond the confines of the president. None of that was planned. It just happened. There was like an hour and a half where people were breaking into the Capitol. The Speaker of the House is calling the president saying, please do something. And there's nothing happens for an hour and a half. So I'm left to take the position of, under the best case scenario, where there's no moral infractions whatsoever, President Trump was at best negligently incompetent when the Capitol was being stormed.
How did we get to Trump's culpability in January 6th?
I've been thinking about this recently because
because you're part of the Borg, and like every sentence has to end with what was Trump's culpability of January 6th.
I also just said maybe we should get rid of the FBI, so I do feel like I'm a bit of a wild card here.
All right, Locutus.
I can't make that argument, Andrew, because the son of a bitch knew exactly what he was doing. So I'm not going to pretend he didn't. I also don't know why we're talking about this, though.
I didn't bring up the pipe bombs.
I brought up the pipe bombs. Yeah. I just said that they were looking into it. That's fine. And also,
you're the only person on earth.
If it was another burger who did it, that's all. That's my only question. Who did it? And what were their motivations?
Well,
usually when something like that happens, you find out who it was and why they were looking to do it.
Sometimes it just is a dude that drops off pipe bombs on the day
and then gets away with it scot-free, just into the wind.
Did they find?
Apparently.
I don't remember this. This did memory hold. Did they find him, or was this a threat of pipe bombs?
Yeah.
So they found
pipe bombs.
There's a video. You can watch the guy putting them underneath a bench, and then he just like walks away.
They never found the guy?
Like, wearing a hoodie.
Nope. Oh, just a normal thing that happens,
dude.
Okay.
Especially
if they exploded, people would care.
6th. By the way, we had a lot of attention on January 6th. Not a whole lot of mention about that one. There was a hearing. Jen is right. There was a hearing.
I mean, that irritates you. What irritates me is that we don't have enough focus on the fake election certifications that were turned in. Like January 6th, that whole story was botched by everyone who covered it. So here we are. Trump's back in office. It didn't matter, apparently. Nothing matters.
And everything's going great.
It's amazing right now in America.
He's got a higher approval rating than Obama in his second term.
Like I said, everything is
really
great.
Huh.
Yeah. That and also the right track, wrong track is the highest that it's been in like 20 years since Obama's first term.
What?
Yeah.
This is
Justin, that's very strange. All of my friends who live in Washington, D.C. disagree with you.
Not me. I'm just looking at the numbers.
Surely they must know something.
I would understand why DC is really pissed off because he's fired so many people and it's affecting bar hours. My friend Kirk Fado from National Journal is like, yeah, I've noticed that in my area, he lives in Capitol Hill. He's like, the bars are opening earlier and earlier because they actually have business in the middle of the day because there's so many people that are on the beach.
I'm so disappointed in all of us.
In all of it. Like just in life.
Well, yeah. I mean, if what you're saying is true and they're not just polling old people with landlines and that really is like, he's got a high approval rating. It's like, do we have no morals because he's disappearing people? And it's just, I don't know what's wrong with us.
I will say, all right, here, I can look this up. I did see this on Twitter, but it was from an account that usually just reposts straight polling data, but I can double check it myself.
I just don't understand who's approving of what he's doing. He's causing chaos in the economy. He's actively hurting people. Like
47.5% of America, according to the aggregate of all polls that are coming out. I will say that they're pretty noisy. Who the fuck do they poll?
Like I've never been called. And no one I know ever gets called. So who are these people that are answering the phone and being like, yes, I watch Fox News all day and I love Mr. Trump. Like, who are these people?
I mean, I don't know. 49.7% do not approve, but that is now under 50%. It was over 50%. It hit a high of 52.4% on April 27th. And it is since then. His disapproval has been on the decline and his approval has been on the incline. And then we can look at right track, wrong track. This is all according to Real Clear Politics. And some people don't like Real Clear Politics. So stat heads, take it up with your mom.
It's just shame.
The fact that my mother works at Real Clear Politics, Justin, is a real low blow. She is a fine lady.
Here we go.
And she does horoscopes for him.
Of the country.
Okay, I honestly don't know how to answer that anyway. I was talking to one of my friends about this the other day. The is America on the right track, wrong track? There's so many things going on at any given time. I would struggle to give a simple answer on that. Of just the whole country's going the right direction. And there's going to be some stuff that's going right. There's some stuff that's going wrong. I guess I could try to make like a weighted average of the various aggregated directions we're going, but it would be difficult for me to do. So I struggle to answer the question.
No problem doing it. Wrong track. Every bit of news that's coming out of this administration is horrifying to me. Like environmental destruction, our reputation on the international stage is just getting destroyed. The economy is pure chaos. We have people being disappeared off the streets, ending up in these fucking prisons, and we have no idea how to get them out for basically misdemeanors. Like crossing over the border is not a crime that deserves months or years in prison with no path of being released. Like our government is doing horrible things. And I just don't understand these people that are watching this news and being like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's poison the air, let's poison the water, and let's disappear people. America's on the right track. Like
50.6% of respondents agree with you, and 43.9% of respondents disagree with you. They believe that that America is on the right track. That is a 7.3 gulf that is higher than it ever was. Oh, wait, no. Biden had it at 7. So this is only slightly, I know, it looks like maybe 6. So this is, it's at 6.7. So that is about as optimistic as we ever got with Joe Biden. That was coming out of January 6th and COVID. We are as optimistic as a country by the numbers now as we were with Joe Biden with a firm adult hand on the wheel post-COVID and after January 6th.
Well, who was excited about Joe Biden? I remember the time just kind of like breathing some fresh air, just being like, okay, at least Trump is gone. But I wasn't excited about Joe Biden. We were still
this is right
in
track.
COVID.
This is right track, wrong track. This is not are you excited?
Noting that my Spock brain struggles with that question. Jen, when do you think we were on the right track? Like what presidents were you like, we're on the right track with those guys?
I mean, not in my lifetime. I think that's one of the reasons I started Congressional Dish. It's like I hoped we would get on the right track with Obama. I hoped that after George W. Bush and the illegal wars and the way that he ran on hope and changing, letting all the people out of Guantanamo that were there with no due process who are still fucking there, he was saying the right things. And then he got into power and drone bombed American citizens and expanded the illegal spying and like basically did George W. Bush, but just did it with more charisma. So that broke my heart. That's when I started the show. And then we end up with Trump, Biden, Trump again. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. And so when I look at the track, if we keep walking down this path, it doesn't look like a lovely road. So it just, I was horrified by the George W. Bush administration. Everything seems to be worse now. We now have this news about...
He's popular now with the kids, W.
Which is amazing because he was a nightmare. And yet compared to this nightmare, he does kind of look better.
Just wait until we're old and all the liberals love Trump.
I got a prediction,
just
by the way.
Fucking book it.
I got a prediction.
They're all going to love Trump.
I think Nixon's going to have a resurgence. I think in the next 10, 20 years, people are going to start looking at Nixon going why did we all hate that guy?
I'm so glad you brought this up.
Like he started the EPA.
A Twitter account.
He started what would become Medicare. Like he's the most progressive Republican of the 20th century.
I just want to tell you, I don't even want to give the name of this account out, but it is an account that is obsessed with Nixon and the Kennedys. It is an incredibly progressive woman who just does nothing but fetishize in graphic sexual terms Richard Nixon, LBJ, Bobby Kennedy, and Jack Kennedy, as well as Jacqueline Kennedy. It is my favorite account on Twitter, and I don't even trust.
Wait, is she
my
writing
fellow
like
panelists or
erotic porn about them?
It is horny posting on a level that is at times uncomfortable to read in public about some of the most buttoned up religious figures of the early 1960s. It is a true delight. It is like the happiest part of my day whenever there is some other just like, and it gets weird, dude. It's like piss fetish stuff. Like it's very gay, like very LBJ is dominating a young waifish Bobby. Like just some of the funniest shit I have ever read. If you want to know what comedy is, that's why. In fact, I was so happy about it when I was called on a poll to ask whether or not America was on the right track or the wrong track. I said right track because I was so delighted by this Twitter account.
Have you ever heard of Chuck Tingle?
Of course. God. Yeah.
Chuck Tingle, American hero, writes.
Jen, have you ever heard of Chuck Tingle?
I have not.
I assume that there's no actual content in any of his books. I think he's just selling covers, but the covers are fucking hilarious. Jen, they're all a series of like weird anthropomorphized gay porn titles. So what are some of my favorite ones here? Okay. Journalists pounded by the physical manifestation of an egregiously mishandled group of texts from the government. That's a more recent one.
Yeah.
A pound a day keeps the butt okay by Chuck Tingle. Escaping. Yeah, there's a bunch of ones like that. Pounded in the nose by seasonal allergies by Chuck Tingle.
There's a lot of butt pounding.
There's a lot of butt pounding.
Yeah.
Bisexual Mothman mailman makes a special delivery at our butts. They're so stupid. Then occasionally he'll throw one that throws you off where he'll do like not pounded by anything. 6 platonic tales of non-sexual encounters.
Andrew, I just adore you. You're like the smartest person I know. And yet a butt joke will get you giggling like this.
But it's not the butt joke. It's how stupid it is. Like it's so stupid. Like it's over the top stupid. The sentence structure is poor. I find that funny. That takes real skill and mastery to be that dumb.
He's got a real following. If you like if you like Chuck Tingle and you would like to cross a racial line, I would like to introduce you to Quan Mills, who similarly is in a self-published world that has graphic titles like Tax Season Thoughts, Pregnant by My Mother's Gay Husband, This Hoe Got Roaches in Her Crib, an urban satire, Old Thought Next Door.
My favorite Chuck Tingle title is My Macaroni and Cheese is a Lesbian. She is also my lawyer. You went through a phase with a lot of like anthropomorphized food.
Yeah. Okay, guys, it's been 20 minutes. Let's get to the show.
From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young from the beaches of Southern California.
I'm Jennifer Briney.
And from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C.,
I'm Andrew Heaton.
And we're not wrong. On this edition of the program, we'll be talking about Elon Musk trashing the one big, beautiful bill, as well as whether or not we should kill all mosquitoes, as we now might have the technology. Jen, how is your volleyball voyage going?
I suck right now, and it's annoying me, so I'm taking a few days off. I think I've just been pushing it too hard and my legs don't work.
I didn't want to say anything, but yeah.
Yeah.
We've all been watching the box scores.
Yeah. I've been reading the tabloids, and they have not been kind.
Yeah.
Joe's crushing it, though. He did really well.
Oh, yeah, he's doing great.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw on the Instagram, we have a Kings and Queens League, and he was one of the kings this week. And so they took his picture, and so he played really well. I played like absolute trash.
What's a Kings and Queens League?
So if you have more than 4...
Is that a pride thing?
No. So if you have more than 4 people in the court, the way that everyone gets to play is like the winner goes on one side. And so everyone else like challenges them 2 by 2. And so if you can score a point on them, then they leave and the new person takes over and you're like the king. And so when you're over there, you can score points. It's the only time you can score points. And Joe scored a lot of points. And
he did
not.
He was the king king of kings, really.
He was the king of the lower court, which I was the absolute
like
bottom. I was the serf of the lower court.
Damn.
It did not go well. So I'm taking a break, basically out of a giant hissy fit, being like, I hate volleyball. So for a few days,
they should redistribute the points, like the Bolsheviks.
Yeah. No, I just need to be better.
There we go. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Speaking of women doing better, how did my baby friend do on her first flight?
Bella did phenomenal. She was great.
I knew she would.
On her trip to Florida. It was great to see everybody. And let me just tell you, I don't know if I've mentioned on the show that she learned to wave recently. So now she just waves at everybody. And boy, did she love being on the plane, because it meant she got to wave at a lot of people that were right next to her. So her favorite time was when everybody was lining up after the flight. Everybody's standing up and they're waiting to get off the plane and to get their stuff from the overhead bins. But that just means that there's a line of people that she could just wave at. Oh my God. And so everybody's waving back at her. She's never been happier. That's like 90% of what she does now. Inside the house, out of the house, she just understands the power of waving at people. We call her the mayor.
Oh my God. I love her so much. She's the best baby. That's amazing. Congratulations. Yeah. It was good. A gem.
Let's talk about Elon Musk, huh? Elon called the Republican domestic policy mega bill a disgusting abomination on Tuesday, sparking backlash from Republican lawmakers. Criticism quickly spread through Capitol Hill, drawing public rebuttals from Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune. While Democrats eagerly highlighted the discord, GOP senators downplayed Musk's influence. Many, including MAGA-aligned members, said they would proceed with improving the bill regardless of Musk's opinion. Senator Tom Tillis dismissed any impact on amendments, and Senator Kevin Cramer summed up the sentiment, I like Elon Musk, but he is one man. Despite his tech world clout, Musk is unlikely to shape or stop the bill's progress. At least that is what some believe. And so, Andrew Heaton, how will Taco Drumpf ever recover from resistance hero Elon Musk dunking on him so relentlessly?
I think he's going to be just fine. And that is a shame because Elon Musk is right about this. The national debt is a really big problem. It is something that the Republicans have talked about my entire lifetime, although as Jen will be bittersweet happy to know, it got really bad under George W. Bush. That's when it really got kicked off to a bad level. And the big, beautiful bill that is hurtling towards the Senate is one which would expand the deficit by an additional $3 trillion. Now, presently, if nothing else bad happens, we never have the chickens come home to roost like every goddamned economist in the country thinks will happen. That just doesn't happen. The modern monetary theory people are completely correct. The nothing bad happens. Right now, the interest that we pay on the debt is now more as a part of the federal budget than what we pay on discretionary defense, what we pay on Medicaid, what we pay on Medicare. So at the very, very least, it's crowding out other programs, SNAPs, all that stuff, discretionary defense. Basically, it's the biggest thing in the budget now, other than Social Security and non-discretionary defense. And that's just now that it's crowding stuff out. We don't have enough money to do this forever. There comes a point where the people that we're borrowing it from, bankers, various groups, will go, I don't think you can find anybody else to pay us back, because it's kind of a pyramid scheme to some extent right now, where it's like, well, we're going to borrow money. We'll borrow more money to pay the people we borrowed money back from. We can just keep doing this, but we can't do it indefinitely. It's eventually going to stop. And we got to figure out something to do. And it's going to be kind of painful. There's no way around this. We're going to have, I think we're going to have to raise taxes, which is not something you tend to hear from the limited government people, but I think we're going to have to raise taxes. And I think we're going to have to cut spending. It's not going to be pleasant. No one's going to like the spending that's cut because it's going to have to be entitlements and the military spending. It's going to be both. This doesn't do that. The bill is doing a bunch of grab bag of Republican things that they want to do. It's increasing defense spending, despite the fact that we have an isolationist president that wants to get us out of foreign conflicts. So I'm not entirely clear on why we need to be spending any more money if we're winding down our activities abroad. It's increasing border security, which I get, given the focus of the administration. And it's it's codifying a bunch of tax cuts from 2017, which add to the deficit. And tax cuts feel good, but we're going to pay for them. We're going to pay for them in the long run. And I'd rather pay it now than pay it triple when the economy collapses 20 years from now. So I think this is a bad bill. Elon Musk is right, and the Republicans should vote against it. I hope the Democrats do.
Jen?
So I agree with every single word that Andrew said. I just want to throw one more number about the numbers, which is that by the Republicans' own estimates, because Mike Johnson's been out there lying about this, by the Republican estimate, not the Joint Committee on Taxation, not the CBO, in 10 years, if this bill passes, our debt will go from 36 trillion, where it is now, to 50. So they know damn well that their numbers don't work. And so
Republicans have said it will go to 50?
Yeah.
From 37?
Yeah.
That it's going to be a $13 trillion increase over 10 years? I've heard 3. I've heard 3. Yeah,
that's the thing. That number, I think that is the deficit. So I think that's the annual, because the numbers that I saw in the bill, it goes, this is what the debt will be if we pass this. It says 50. I've seen it. So I can send you the fucking document if you want it.
That is just the first that I am hearing of that number. Even the numbers that people are pointing at to shame it.
The numbers that I've seen, and I don't know about the sum total. It's really, really big, and it's larger. I think we can think in terms of vectors on this one. It is moving in a larger direction, regardless of what the actual sum total is. In terms of the numbers that are being debated, what I'm saying is the conservative estimate, as in the cautious estimate, is that we'll add 3.4 trillion to the debt over the next, I thought it was 10 years.
They're saying deficit, which is different from debt.
Thank you. That is a key thing. Yes, thank you. Deficit, not the debt. Thank you, Jen. 3.4 trillion. Now that is a number that is being very much massaged by various accountancy gimmicks by the Republicans. The more likely figure is 5 trillion over the next 10 years to the deficit.
Well, in the document I saw, they showed it year by year going from 36 to 50. So here's the main point is they know that they are going to explode the debt. But that's also not the biggest problem. Like the Big Beautiful Bill has some horrendous policy changes in it too. This is what my latest congressional dish is about. It is a terrible bill. So Elon's right about it, but Elon is a selfish human being. And so there are things in this bill that would hurt his business. Like, so specifically Tesla, they would lose their electric car credit that we get for buying his product.
EV credits.
Yeah. So that's like one thing people are tossing around. But I think the biggest reason he's doing this is that homie got played. Because Doge was never a real department. I think he never really understood our government. And so when he got in there and was told, like, you're going to have all this power, I think he believed it. And so, you know, he was sending out emails to federal workers telling them, like, you have to send in 5 things that you do every day or else you're getting fired. And then he was slapped down time and time again. The firings he did try to do directly are the ones getting overturned in court. Like, he had no real power. And Doge was never a real department. Reminder, once again, it is a sub-agency of an agency in the executive branch. So it's not even an agency, let alone a department. He never had power. And so I think once he got in there and realized that he was a piggy bank for Donald Trump, and Donald Trump gave him an imaginary position of power, which we all know did nothing. Like, Doge did not approach anywhere near the promises that Elon was making. It made him look like a fool, because he is a fool. And so I think now that he's been booted out of even his imaginary position in the government, because apparently he wanted to stay but couldn't, and Trump has done absolutely nothing about all of the reporting for the New York Times that he's like a drug addict taking, you know, ecstasy and ketamine, and like that report comes out. No one defends him whatsoever. So he's basically been thrown overboard off of the Trump train. I think he's pissed about it. So, I mean, even if it is some altruistic thing where he's like, I really wanted to get in there and do something about the debt and like couldn't do it. Like, I think mainly he's a man baby who's pissed about the way he was treated by the Trump administration. And so now he is going scorched earth, which we knew that at some point Trump versus Elon was going to happen. It is now happening. I'm going to enjoy the show. And so I don't really care what his motivations are. If he's getting people to be aware of how bad this bill is and do anything to stop it, because like I said, like this is a horrible, immoral bill. And it's about more than in numbers, like authorizing indefinite detention of children. It reduces the number of nursing staff or nursing home staff that has to be on duty because private equity firms are getting in trouble for that. So basically like getting them out of trouble for increasing deaths in nursing homes. We have no state regulation allowed of AI for 10 years. We have
circle that one. I want to get back to it.
Yeah, there's they're trying to stop contempt citations against Trump administration officials who ignore judicial orders. Like it's not just about the numbers. It's not just about the debt. This is an immoral, terrible bill. So if it takes Elon Musk, who I despise, getting out there and because he's pissed at Trump, shutting it down. I don't really care how it gets shut down. I just want this thing not to be lost.
Get back
so it's
at
like
that Tesla dealerships, you blue sheep. You better be buying those EV. Get those blue bingers stiff.
Take your ketamine, drive around in your computer cars, get the fuck out of government. But if you're going to use your X powers to trash this bill, I welcome it. Let's go.
Heaton. This is one of the things that I found particularly interesting with the opposition and the Democrats for, you know, their lack of leadership on and direction on almost everything. It does not surprise me that there are contradictory elements, nor should there be for the party that is out of power. They should be looking at everything that they can stick to the majority. But the one thing that I find interesting is that you do have voices on the left that are talking about things like the debt and the bond market and the long-term financial future of America. But also, this is a bill that does make cuts. It might not make deep enough entitlement cuts that are going to, bend the curve of debt borrowing in America. But the cuts that they are making are being reacted to in a very animated fashion that led to people screaming at Joni Ernst this weekend that it was literally going to kill people. So how do we reconcile that? If yes, there is a long-term debt problem. Yes, in part, it will require entitlement reform, and that even something that the Republicans describe as just means testing to reduce Medicare enrollment that doesn't need to be there results in people screaming, "You're going to kill me." How does that circle get squared?
It's difficult. I don't think that there's an easy way out. There are certain things we could do. There's lots of things that I could cut around the edges of, like sugar subsidies and things like that within discretionary spending. But if you were to take all of the things that Heaton identifies as bullshit government programs that I can make a very good case on, that AOC would go, you're right, that's crony capitalism, we don't need that. I don't think it would make a significant dent. The only way you're going to make a dent is if you tackle entitlements and you tackle military spending, which I would do, and I would pair with tax increases as well. I think that the closest we've come to getting the budget on track was under Obama with a Gang of Eight, where they were going to do more or less $2 of spending cuts for every $1 of tax increases. I would have taken that deal. That fell apart because the Democrats refused to do any spending cuts. Now, basically, both parties refused to do any spending cuts to entitlements. And at the time, because the Republicans refused to do any tax increases. And so we had this implacable situation there. The reality is it's going to hurt, but it's going to hurt a lot less now than it will in 20 years if we just have like an entire economic meltdown where we are unable to do any deficit spending. And so we cut everything by a tremendous amount, or we just don't do Social Security or we don't do Medicaid. It's going to be much, much better to do it now. Some things you could do that would allow us to transition out of the federal deficit without causing as much problems. I wouldn't start with cutting Medicaid. Like, I want there to be a Social Security net. Like, Medicaid is not on my chopping block. But one thing that I would do that the bill addresses that I think is a good move is states are basically abusing Medicaid funding right now. There's a maneuver that they do. It got started in New Hampshire under Governor Judd maybe 20 years ago, where what they figured out is with Medicaid, you get 40%. You get matching federal amounts, right? So the state does 60%, the federal government does 40%, or maybe it's the other way. I can't remember. The federal government does 60%, state does 40%. What states have started doing, and it's now very, very common, is they'll do a tax on government provided Medicaid services. So they'll tax it to increase the price of it, give that bill to the federal government so that the federal government gives an inflated price of matching back so that the states end up getting more money than they otherwise would have got. It's this maneuver basically like scamming the federal government. It was called meta scam, openly in New Hampshire for a while. All the states should, it would, if you cut that out, it would actually disproportionately hurt red states because red states are the ones that tend to have more Medicaid spending. But that's something that I would do because the way Medicaid spending is set up, it's supposed to be a joint collaboration between the federal government and the states. And that's something that we're going to have to pay through taxes, and that could be done at the state level. So that's something that I think you could do that the bill does address that would at least shift that burden off of the national deficit and be a little bit less scammy. But otherwise, though, I think it's going to hurt a little bit. The way to make it hurt the least, I think, would be to make things mean tested, like with Social Security, with Medicare.
Well, that is part of it with Medicare, is that they want able-bodied people who do not have a child under 7 to.
That's Medicaid.
Medicaid, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
With Medicare, with a lot of the entitlements we have, a significant amount of the entitlements we have are going to people that don't need entitlements. And it's messy because you've put into Social Security your entire life, and I'm doing that, you guys are doing that. But there are lots of government programs that are giving money to people that are the most affluent cohort of America that don't need it, and it'll
wait. Hold on, what are you talking about?
80% of the wealth in the country is owned by people over the age of 65.
But they're not on Medicaid. Let's not pretend that people who are wealthy are on Medicaid.
I'm talking about Medicare and Social Security.
Yeah, which is something that when you turn 65 as an American who pays into the system, it's something that you get. It's something that you've earned your entire life.
If you're rich, do private health insurance. If you were wealthy, I don't think that you should be getting that. Okay,
we should have no safety net in the United States.
I did not fucking say. I just said I want Medicaid to be there.
To pretend that these entitlements, I really don't like that framing of it. That it's only
I like free gimmies.
It's not a free gimme. It's something that's coming out of our money. We're paying for it. And so that way, when you turn 65, you know that you have something that you don't have to depend on the goddamn private sector, or you don't you have something that it's a retirement fund for all of us. It's basically the only universal healthcare that you get. So if you're over the age of 65, when your healthcare is the most expensive, do we really want to be in a country where you have to go broke before you have any kind of benefit kick in?
I want there to be a social safety net, but I want the social safety net for people who need it, not for people who don't need it. So
we are not in a country where there's a ton of people that don't need it. That's just not where we're at. I just don't think that like the path forward here needs to be like, let's start means testing Medicare when the entire point of this bill is to give tax cuts to the rich. Where would you make cuts?
We're like, I'm open to stuff.
I want to stop talking about cuts. I think we need to look at the purpose of what the Republicans are doing and what they've been doing my entire adult life, which is like they're trying to give tax cuts to the rich over and over and over again. And in service of that, they're making these cuts.
I'm against that. But I'm saying we got to cut spending too. So like, let's raise taxes. I'm in favor of that. Let's cut military spending. I'm in favor of that. We're still not out of the hole. What do we do?
We don't need to cut Medicare and Medicaid. Like, if you really want to tackle the health insurance issue in this country, you take insurance out of the middleman of it and you give everyone universal health care. They've done study after study that says that that pencils out better than having the system that we have. And so taking health insurance away from the elderly is just not the solution here. And it's also not the conversation we need to be having. The purpose of this is to give more money to the people that have the most. It is tax cuts for the rich. And we keep veering over into, well, we need to make all of these cuts. No, we don't. How about we stop giving tax cuts to the rich? How about we stop policing the entire world? Like, as you said, as we definitely agree on, we are now spending $1 trillion a year on the military, and we're spending $1 trillion in a year servicing this debt, and it's only going to go up if the Republicans get their way. And the numbers don't math out, not because old people have health care in the United States, but because we keep giving the richest people tax cuts. Like, that is the purpose of this bill. It's not to balance the debt. And so to look at this and like from a numbers perspective.
I'm not saying it's to balance the, I'm saying it's a bad fucking bill. I would not vote for this bill. All I'm saying is if we have to, if we actually want to get to a place where we don't have a giant financial calamity at some point, we got to raise taxes on the rich. We got to let the tax cuts expire, all the stuff you're saying, cut back on the military, and we'll still have to cut spending someplace. I'm very open to other places we can cut spending, but we're going to have to do it somewhere.
Or we can spend our money more wisely. Sure, like that is also an option. And looking at our entire healthcare system and how scammy it is, like that's a really good place to start. And I just don't think cutting Medicare is the solution to this. I think there's better ways to do this. I think universal healthcare has been proven to be that solution all over the world. When you say
universal healthcare, do you mean Medicare for all? Because that would be more government spending. It would be more government spending. How would that cut spending?
It would be wiser. Wiser.
If you guys want to do an episode about this, then I can pull out this. Yes, it would be wiser because you don't have Medicare paying for, Medicare is basically paying for insurance for people. And so what you have is the same gimmicks that you have happening in the private sector where these physicians are not getting paid enough. And so they scam the system by charging too much. And it's just like the entire system is a scam from top to bottom. And the reason is that we have this insurance system that is doing the payment. In other countries, they get better healthcare for less money. So we're just like burning money by having it this way. And I don't think it's a good system. It costs our employers. It costs our individuals. It costs our government a ton of money. So it's like we can do healthcare more efficiently. But what the Republicans keep saying is like, no, we just need to cut. We just need to cut. And at the same time, we can cut taxes for the rich.
You get no argument from me that the medical systems, the healthcare system we have set up is very, very bad. I agree with all of that, right? And I do think that's scammy and there's all sorts of inflation going on. I don't understand, like, I would be more amenable to having like federal socialist clinics than I would Medicare for all, because that would be expanding the amount of government spending on it.
Fine.
So I'm lost there on how that would reduce.
A better system would reduce costs. And so if you want to go down the rabbit hole and have me like study this and bring the receipts, I can do that some different day. Like this is not what I was prepared for today. So I'm not going to go throwing numbers around that I do not have. All I'm saying is that the conversation we're having right now as a country and on this show keeps saying we have to cut. And I'm sick of it because what they are trying to do, the goal is not cutting to reduce our debt or to help our country. It is cutting to cut tax cuts or to give tax cuts to the people who do not need them. And so that is the conversation that I feel like we need to have in this country and focus less on, well, how do we cut Medicaid and Medicare? Because they're the real problem. They're not the real problem. Like this is what Republicans always do. And I know I'm like spicy today, but I'm just fucking sick of it. I'm tired of hearing that we need to cut because like I'm looking at my own family. Like if you look at my own family, my parents, you would look at them and be like, oh, they're wealthy. They don't need Medicare. Bullshit. They do need their Medicare. They've earned their Medicare. They've put their money into that system their entire lives. They deserve to have those checks coming in so they have security. Like my dad had his heart attack at 60 and it like blew a giant hole in his retirement savings. And I'm sorry, Dad, for talking about your personal stuff, but like you are my example. At 65, he would have a lot more money in his pocket because he would have had this magic Medicare happen. And so it's just like, I hate that I don't have Medicare. So to even talk about threatening it for my parents when they finally hit that, you know, that threshold of being somewhat taken care of in this horrible healthcare system, I resent it because this is not what we need to do to balance our budget. Like, and the idea that Republicans are even trying, they're not trying. And Andrew, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the Republicans. They're not trying. And they just want to have this conversation about cuts. This bill is a fucking abomination. Elon is right. And it's even beyond the numbers.
Number one, Elon Musk.
I shouldn't be.
Would love to have a smarter healthcare system. 100% would love to do that. Presently, we can't afford it in the long term. Everybody that relies on it can't rely on it indefinitely. At some point, we're not going to be able to pay for it. I would rather fix things now than deficit spend and get in trouble. And where I get frustrated in all of this is I do think we need to raise taxes on the rich and probably on the middle class. We do need to let the tax cuts expire. This is not something the Republicans are saying. This is not something the Libertarians are saying. This is not anything remotely popular in my camp, if I say this. But also, I think we got to have some spending cuts. And I'm open to where we cut them, but we got to do it. We got to do both. And it's frustrating for me because both of these are prerequisites to avoiding financial calamity later and really, really, really having people suffer.
And here's where I'll meet you. And here's where I'll meet you, Andrew. I can get on board with that conversation if that was the Republican goal. If they weren't expanding these tax cuts, then we could have that conversation and be like, how do we balance it?
I'm with you on the Republicans are full of shit. I'm with you on that. They don't give a shit. Their actions are not matching their rhetoric for the last 20 years. There's like maybe two Republicans that actually give a shit. Rand and Massey might be the only ones. So like, I'm with you. The Republicans are bad here. I wish that we had adults in Congress that would fucking fix this, and we don't. We don't.
I do too. But I think we have to deal with the reality that we're actually in. And the reality that we're in is the big, beautiful bill, which is doing none of the things that we wish it would do. And they're lying about it. So I don't want to play into their lies.
Can I ask you this question when it comes to raising taxes? I understand the spreadsheet side of it, that if we raise taxes, then we could cover this. But the argument that I'm sure you hear when you bring this up on the libertarian side is that increasing the amount of water into a leaky bucket doesn't mean that we really do anything. It means that we're going to create more runoff and graft that often happens with these gigantic bills. And whether it comes from the left or the right, and this time it is coming from the right, to Jen's point, that there will be a lot of tax savings that are codified now that would not go up otherwise, because these are just making permanent largely the TCJA cuts from 2017. Or it's the American Rescue Plan, which put a lot of money in the hands of a lot of people that didn't, by many watchdogs and the general eye test with people, didn't seem to have as much of a change or effect on their lives. It just kind of disappears somewhere and is never seen again. Do you believe that there needs to be government efficiency reforms, to say nothing of whether or not the goal is noble or ignoble, or that we should be adjusting our aperture on who gets government services, but just reliably understanding that these things actually do get to the people, that needs to happen before we start putting more pressure on the system by way of more money?
I agree with everything you said. The government could absolutely be more efficient. It is not very efficient. We could absolutely better allocate our resources better. We reallocate more of our GDP than any country except for France. We don't do a very good job with it. So like we're reallocating more of our resources than Great Britain or Canada do in terms of our GDP, but we squander it. So there's all sorts of horrible spending, poor spending, upward transfers of wealth, all sorts of things we could do. Yes to all of those things. And I don't really like raising taxes, but I think it's a reality of the equation. A lot of my libertarian friends would want to just dramatically cut all spending and never raise taxes at all. And I think that that's unrealistic, that we're going to go back to having we're going to cut the budget by 80% or something like that. That's just not going to happen. And if we're going to wait to be fiscally responsible, by which I mean getting our affairs in order until we make the government efficient and competent, I think we're going to be holding our breath for a while. So it's going to require multiple approaches simultaneously. And taxes are probably going to be a part of that.
Can I give you guys my conspiracy theory on why Elon decided to talk about this bill?
Yeah.
Jen actually hit on it. She sunk my battleship with her laundry list of things she hates about this bill. In California, a year and a half ago, in the California legislature, there was a bill that would regulate the training of AI models. And essentially what it did is it said that based on the amount of computers you used to train the model, there would be some level of, I forget the exact specifics, but there'd be some level of oversight and ability for the government to either approve, not approve, or shut down training of large language models based on the amount of horsepower, essentially, that you would be using to do it. It was roundly fought against by a lot of the companies that are trying to train large language models. It was supported by Elon Musk. Elon Musk believed that there needed to be a restriction. He also supported a pause in AI research because there was a fear that one day there could be a switch that's flipped and accidentally we have Skynet and it finds a way to launch all the nukes and we're all dead, right? He supported a pause for that. Now, some would say that he really cared about AI safety and he desperately cares. Others would say that he had a fight with Sam Altman several years ago where he left OpenAI. He tried to hire all their best engineers to go to Tesla. That didn't happen. And so now that LLMs have exploded, he's very pissed off that he does not have control of OpenAI. And he is pissed off that OpenAI is leading the way. While he has done good work in the world of LLMs with Grok, what he would like is the ability to influence on a governmental level the lead that his one of his biggest enemies, Sam Altman and OpenAI, have right now in the world of large language models. And so that is what I found interesting when all of a sudden, not only does Elon Musk come out and torch this bill talking about spending, but also noted AI LLM enthusiast Marjorie Taylor Greene decides to come out yesterday and humiliate herself by saying, I didn't know in the bill that I voted for, there was a 10-year pause, a 10-year federal regulation that states could not make their own laws to regulate large language model training, which is essentially a federal answer to the fact that California got very close. It passed both chambers of the California state legislature. It was then vetoed by Gavin Newsom, who can pretty much be bought for any price. But this federal thing is an answer so that cannot happen over the next 10 years. And there's a larger argument that you can have for or against, both on the AI safety side and then on the arms race side, that to allow somebody to do this would be the same thing as allowing New Mexico to basically halt the ability to create the atomic bomb when Oppenheimer was doing it, that we are in an arms race with China and we need to maintain our lead. But that is my conspiracy theory as to why randomly, not only does Elon go scorched earth on this, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is now lifting the AI safety thing in a realm where she had never talked about any of this shit before. Conspiracy gerbs.
She wasn't the only one. Mike Flood also came out and said that he didn't know about the contempt citation provision as well, which isn't too surprising. This thing was like 1,028 pages. It was so long. It was available for like a couple hours before they voted on it. It's just so unbelievably reckless the way they
But if you cared about this issue, I knew about the AI stuff that was in the bill before it got voted on. I knew about it a week before, like, because I care about AI. If you don't care about AI and this is a thing that is new to you, and now all of a sudden you think this is very, very important. That's what I am interested in. And they might have got religion on this. Maybe they've read some book or somebody tuned them on to something else. Maybe they're all effective altruists. Maybe they're going to look to spring Sam Bankman-Fried because he was right all along, and we need to be more interested in the effective altruism of saving from a misaligned AGI. But I tend to think it's probably because they heard it from Elon.
Maybe they legit didn't know because they were voting yes on the bill because they're Republican sheep that just vote yes on whatever Trump wants. I actually think that's possible here. They didn't care what was in the bill. They didn't know what was in the bill. They voted for it and they're finding out after the fact. I think it's possible.
I think that they did that. Like, I am not disproving that this was a train going forward. They were on the side of the White House that wanted to get this out of the House no matter what. My curiosity is more in why do they care about this subject now when they have not shown any interest in this subject before?
I don't know. Maybe they've seen the Terminator movies.
Maybe. That would be interesting if MAGA was, AI doomer, because that does splinter the MAGA coalition, Well,
I mean, it's one paragraph. It's such a blunt force, like no regulation on the state or local level of AI for 10 years. So if you believe in states' rights, which Republicans say they do, this doesn't work for you. And if you have any concerns whatsoever about artificial intelligence, which can kind of control its own destiny, like, it's just so short-sighted that I do think that there's going to be at least some people that think twice about it. And maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of them. Like,
are you
she
a
legit
D-cell
didn't know.
Or an EAAC or ACC?
I don't speak your nerd language. I don't know what that means.
You're a P-doomer?
I don't know. I don't want to come face-to-face with the Terminator. So I would like regulation of AI.
I think the question is, do you want to come face-to-face with a Terminator that speaks English?
You want an American Terminator or a Mandarin Terminator? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to hear "Come with me if you want to live" in Mandarin. I want to.
Ni hao, Wodapongyo. Means hello, my friend.
Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong. On this week, we are going to be talking on our bonus episode about Glenn Greenwald's kink tape.
I tried to find it. I wanted to see it. It's not available.
We can try and see if we can all find it together. I have a sense of where it might be. I did not go looking for it myself, because the topic really I want to get to is more about the death of shame and whether or not the idea of a leaked sex tape is even really a reputational damage on the level that it once was.
Gary Hart.
I have lots of thoughts.
Yeah. We got all sorts of stuff on that. So that's, we always save the sexy stuff, like Glenn Greenwald in a bikini and a miniskirt with a Brazilian prostitute. We save that stuff for the Patreon. You got to pay for it, friends. Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong. Let's talk about mosquitoes. Scientists are exploring gene-drive therapy to suppress or potentially eradicate malaria-carrying mosquitoes, aiming to reduce death from diseases like malaria, dengue, and West Nile virus. Target Malaria, funded by the Gates Foundation and Open Philanthropy, has developed genetically modified mosquitoes with a gene that renders female offspring infertile. Advocates see this as a transformational tool to fight malaria, which has killed nearly 600,000 people in 2023 alone, yet ethical concerns persist. Critics warn of ecological risks and oppose the idea of deliberately driving a species extinct, even one as reviled as mosquitoes. Some propose targeting the malaria-causing Plasmodium parasite instead. Bioethicists argue extinction should only be considered for an especially harmful species and caution that the complex mosquito ecosystem is still poorly understood. Jen, should we kill all the mosquitoes, or would it upset Mother Gaia?
I think we always have to be very careful when we mess with the bottom of a food chain. And so there are lots of animals that feast on mosquitoes. I also found out that the mosquitoes that bite us, out of 3,500 species of mosquitoes, there's only 100 of them that bite us, and it's only the females, which I just found kind of fascinating. So it's kind of misogynistic.
Am I right, guys?
Suggests that all mosquitoes must die because of those pesky ladies. Yeah. But like legit, I think that there's dangers to it that we don't understand. At the same time, that is a lot of humans that are dying. So I'm a little torn on the idea. And so what I really think we need to do is increase the number of bats. Because when I was living in Austin, I lived next to a bridge that was full of bats and they would feast on mosquitoes. And I lived in the summer right next to a giant body of water and didn't get a single mosquito bite in Texas in the summer. And I think it had to be because of the bats. So I think that we should just flood the world with bats, like shipping containers full of bats, and that will solve everything.
Popping out like Ukrainian drones. I'll tell you, I could use a few on my block because it gets bad. It's already bad with the mosquitoes.
Mosquito
Not
season,
a single bite.
I had a creek backing up to me when I was in Austin. A mosquito season, without exaggeration, lasted from February, like January 12th to December 20th. Like mosquito seasons are real long in Texas.
Yeah. And people were complaining about it and I was doing just fine. Did I tell you guys about the vent in my building that they moved into? Did I ever tell you about this? Yeah. The mosquitoes, they moved into
bat vent?
Yes. And it was one apartment
mosquitoes
over.
Or bats moved into your vent?
No, the bats. The bats moved into my vent. Yeah. And so every night at sunset, we would see hundreds of bats come flying out of our building. And so I really enjoyed that. Yeah, it was super cool.
Not a bug.
Yeah. But I think that like in all seriousness, knowing that the bats were feasting on the mosquitoes like that was a major, major, major part of their diet. And so it's like, how many other species are dependent? Like you have mosquitoes, the bats eat the mosquitoes. Who eats the bats? Like it can really affect chains of like food chains in ways that we don't understand. So I think it's a dangerous thing to do. I still think I still like the idea of protecting humans from mosquitoes as opposed to murdering an entire species. So I'm not comfortable with the idea.
The better joke there was Catwoman that eats the bat. Heaton, would you kill all the mosquitoes?
I'd kill all the species that kill humans. Okay. As Jen rightly points out, there's about 3,500 species of mosquitoes. Maybe 100 of them suck human blood. There's 30 of them that cause all the diseases. So yes, I would hit that button and kill all those fuckers. That have killed more humans than anything else in history. Nature ran a story a few years ago that in the last 50,000 years, about half of all humans have died from malaria. And so it's a huge, huge number. But let me work small and work my way up. So let's start with North America. I would absolutely kill Aedes aegypti, which is the culprit here in America, or in the Americas that carries Zika virus. It also carries
heat dropping mosquito science. Get them.
Yeah, look at that.
They also carry yellow fever and dengue fever, neither of which are very much fun. Aedes aegypti is a invasive species. It's not indigenous to North or South America. It came over from the slave trade. It's been over here since the 1700s. And it causes Zika, if everybody remembers that, which is absolutely fucking horrible, where if you're in Brazil, where the most of the outbreaks were, and you're pregnant, you get this, your child is born with permanent severe brain damage, horrible seizures. It's a really, really nasty, bad disease from an invasive species. So I don't have any problem wiping out an invasive species because it's already not a natural part of the ecosystem. So I'm not worried about those cards falling since it's a Johnny come lately. And I think it would actually, in our hemisphere, be better for us because right now we're fighting mosquitoes. And the way we do it is with massive amounts of insecticide. When that outbreak with Zika happened in Brazil, what the Brazilians did was just fog entire cities with poison to kill them. What we do in the States, 90% of the mosquito anti-mosquito efforts that we do is dropping insecticide. When West Nile virus happened, Texas sprayed the equivalent of about 38,000 football stadiums across the state with insecticide. Same in the Florida Keys. So right now, we are fighting mosquitoes. We do it with poison. If we could genetically knock out an invasive species that's not even supposed to be here that gives children birth defects, yes, 100% fucking kill them. But let's now jump over to Africa, because I think that's where the malaria bit that you're talking about comes in, or the story is germane to. As you point out, about 600,000 people die from malaria every year. 95% of them are in Africa, and 75% of them are children. So three quarters of the people that die from malaria are children. When you do the math on that, it ends up being about 1,000 kids per day, every single year that die from malaria. 3 747s of children die every day. They're going to die today. 1,000 children will die by the end of today by malaria. That is a big number. So while I appreciate general cautionary perspectives on genetic engineering and wiping out a species, I think that those are, broadly speaking, good places to be. They do not outweigh the death of 1,000 children daily for me, particularly when we're not talking about wiping out all mosquitoes. We're talking about wiping out 30 of the 3,500 species, about 1% of mosquitoes that would actually affect us. Plus, I don't think that it's likely we actually would make them go fully extinct anyway. They're doing this in Brazil right now with Oxetic, I think is the name of the company, where they introduce mosquitoes that have this gene that makes them sterile and whatnot. And what ends up happening is
it's like a mosquito STD.
It's like a mosquito STD, and they'll knock out about 95% of them. So you have to do it repeatedly. Like, it doesn't end up making them extinct, but it does drop the number down to a point where it's not a rampant problem. So I don't think we're going to get to the point where, even if this went really well, where we'd go, oh shit, we really need the Egyptian mosquito back. Oh God. And if we're really worried about it, like to do this, you have to breed 450,000 mosquitoes and release them in an area. So like keep another dome full of the mosquitoes we don't like. And we'll just keep them for 50 years to see if we really need them. But I think that the variability of the ecosystem is such that they're not a keystone species. The ones that we're talking about are not a keystone species. They're not the majority of any animal's diet. Bats, which I want to say this, Jen, I'm very pro bat. I've been consistently pro bat since the 90s. Yay, bats. I'm all for bats. Their diets are usually 10 to 30% mosquitoes, I think, maybe 70% in certain species, but they eat lots of different insects. So it's not like there's going to be an ecological collapse from them. So I think this is the benefits greatly outweigh the abstract theoretical costs, and I would kill them.
I love that you're like so small government, and yet you're willing to fund a mosquito dome.
Yeah. Hey,
he didn't say how. He didn't say how. It could be underwritten by the Gates Foundation.
I didn't say
the private sector is going to profit from the mosquito dome.
Yeah.
Release the mosquitoes.
It is the Gates Foundation. This is private. But even then, though, I think this would be pretty, like, saving 1,000 kids a day. Wouldn't that be a good use of public resources?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Fuck them, man. Fuck these mosquitoes. They suck shit. I hope they all die. We'll figure it out. Nature's good with that. It all comes. Look, we get too obsessed about how much we can affect nature, in my opinion. Nature's
we've done that in America, by the way. Like, the reason we don't have not smallpox. The reason that we don't have malaria in the United States is because we killed all the fuckers back in the 30s. We started doing massive amounts of insecticide throughout the Southwest, the South.
Let's go.
Like in people's houses and ponds and rivers, and like drain swamps. Rebuilt canals, like redesigned the earth and then filled it with poison to kill them. This is a much less invasive way. This is much less impactful on the ecosystem.
So we didn't have mosquitoes in the 30s?
No, we did have mosquitoes, but we had malaria in the 30s. We wiped it out by 1951.
So we eradicated mosquito-borne malaria by
1951.
Poisoning everything.
By draining large amounts of swampland, redesigning canals, and then dropping DEET and other insecticides across the country.
Can we speak on the positives of poison? That seems like a great thing that poison did for us.
Yeah, I'd argue it was probably for the best. I would rather have that. I would rather have done that in the 30s and not have the malaria in the United States.
I think for poison. Why don't we think of cooler ways that we can use poison?
Because we don't know how many people got cancer and died because of the poison.
But no mosquitoes with malaria.
Justin, why did you pick this topic? Did a mosquito come after you in Florida? Get you right on the ass?
I've actually lived with mosquitoes my entire life. I've never been a guy who's been bitten too much by mosquitoes. My mom used to say I had sour blood.
I get them. They sure like me.
Take that for what you will, dear listener.
I love your mom.
But yeah, I mean, they are annoying. But I'm most annoyed with mosquitoes because I redid my backyard and my backyard looks great. And I use it for a day, a year, because it's either too cold or it's too warm. And even when it's too warm, I would be fine going out there, but the mosquitoes are out. And so now I got to wear long sleeves.
They thrive
outside.
in hot, humid environments.
Yeah.
They do really well between 50 and 95 degrees with humidity.
And so I'm in for anything. If I got to release a bunch of bats that just nest around our neighborhood and they're eating more of them, that's fine. If I got to throw poison myself throughout all of our neighborhood, I'm into that. Like bring Bill Gates's ass on out here and let him put his slut mosquitoes out into the environment and murder them that way. I don't give a rat's ass. I want any and all options on the table. In fact, when we talk about government making our lives better, if there were a governor or politician that came out and said, I am going to spare no expense nor scientific advantage to eliminate mosquitoes from biting you during the summer, they would be elected emperor. Like, this is what we actually want. We don't want Dan Patrick in Texas banning. Did you guys follow any of this? They're banning like the Delta 8 and 9 hemp stuff in Texas.
It's going to destroy my friend's business.
Yeah,
Jerks.
it's stupid. It's really, really dumb. And Dan Patrick is a moron who did a press conference where these are regulated edibles that you get at gas stations. And he's like, would you eat this? Like, you don't know what's in it. It has a nutritional label on it. Like, as a food stuff, it has to be regulated by the state of Texas. It has a calorie count on the back. It has a QR code to understand more about what it is. They're cereal bites. Now, are there other questions that I think sensible legislation could come in when it comes to edibles on dosage and people getting too high and maybe the median dosage on edibles being too high? I'm here for a well-balanced conversation. That's not what this is. It's a stupid overbroad law. And these is precious seconds that the Texas legislature, which only convenes once every 2 years, could be spending buying tremendous amounts of weapons-grade poison to put in our earth so mosquitoes aren't alive anymore. That's what I want. I want a wholesale mosquito genocide in the state of Texas. That's what would make me proud to be a Texan, because these things stink. And if it's like, a few other things are going to die because they eat them exclusively, A, I don't think that's true. But B, let's say there are, fuck them.
They're also the greatest nemesis of mankind in all of human history.
Yeah,
I think Justin got bit. I think he's itchy.
I mean, Jen, I'm going to admit I've been bit recently, but I've always fucking hated mosquitoes, and like all of the arguments I just made aside, I just fucking hate them.
You want to know what? Actually, this is really, now that I'm investigating my own feelings on this, it's not my reaction to mosquitoes. It's Heaton's reaction to mosquitoes when he lived here, and Darren's reaction. Everybody else that I want to hang out with outside, and my wife that never wants to hang out outside during the summer, because I'm fine hanging out during a humid night during the summer, sitting out on the porch. That's a great time for me. I would like that, but the mosquitoes chase all my friends inside, and so I would rather kill all the mosquitoes than my friends.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes love me, but I still sit outside. I just kind of accept it as like a price of being outside. I sit outside.
I just bitch a lot, which is what Justin doesn't like.
That's true. About the weather and the mosquitoes.
I do. God. I bitch a lot about the weather.
Yeah, you're a lot.
Technically, I bitch about the climate. I've thought a lot about this. The weather's nice in Austin. The climate's wretched.
No, because you're mostly like into dew points and humidity levels and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The
second you got better when you discovered linen. I feel like you
significantly.
Yeah.
It got much better. I had to, you know what? I was able to develop heat and adaptations to the summer while living in Austin.
Yeah. And then we both left.
And I'm blaming the mosquitoes. Now we've gotten to the cornerstone. You guys both left me, and I want to kill the mosquitoes in retribution. Hey, that's my villain origin story.
Hey, Justin, for real though, because I looked into this. I loved that place I had in Austin. It was a great spot, but it backed up to a creek. And so it was relentless with mosquitoes 11 and a half months a year. if I'd stayed there long term, they make a like propane mosquito trap. As I understand it, mosquitoes are attracted to the carbon dioxide that we emit. That's how they find us. So I think like most mosquito spray actually just blocks you. It just makes them blind to you. They're not repelled by it. You're now invisible. So they make these traps where it kind of looks like a popcorn machine. And you've got like one of those big grilling sized propane deals. You turn it on and it releases carbon dioxide that attracts them, but it's also sucking them in. So there's like this like fan powered mosquito trap thing that just sucks the fuckers in. So you could get one of those, put it in your backyard.
I've had I've experimented with a million different mosquito things throughout my life. They're all fucking
gimmicks.
Bunk.
Did they not work? Yeah.
Well, then there was another one that actually was well reviewed. I get in trouble with my wife. My wife was worried that the chemical that one used would affect either the birds or the baby. And so
it's a fair concern.
And so I was going to hang out outside with a friend, and I went to go look for the thing that I had purchased and I had left in a place where I knew I would be able to find it. And my wife had hidden it from me
I love
because
her.
she didn't want me to use it.
That's amazing.
Again, just kill them. Kill them all.
I think you should just put a giant mosquito net over your entire backyard, because that would solve your mosquito problem and her squirrel problem. Because she's had a long running battle with the squirrels.
Just turn it into a giant screen porched yard.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
That
Florida man.
That is something that we have talked about. We've talked about screening in the porch.
No, do the whole yard. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
The yard would be a harder lift because we have those trees in the back. So we'd have to figure out where on the tree.
And I kind of think it would become like a squirrel highway. Like the squirrels would be like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I've got a big trampoline I get to hang out and poop on.
Yeah.
They'd stop eating Ashley's plants, but then they'd just be trampolining all night having squirrel parties.
Basically. We're not wrong.
You could charge tickets though. Like, watch my flipping squirrels.
Watch the fantastic squirrels, the flying squirrels. Limerick Man writes, there was once a political throuple who argued with points and rebuttals, jury and Jen, Will and Heaton, and a Patreon like postcoital cuddle.
Ooh. I like it.
I was John McCain's first Senate page, writes. I didn't think anyone could swear at the rate he did. Sorry, Mitch and Nancy. The star of the House of Elders is Lindsey motherfucking Graham. I think if Lindsey Graham went to my C-SPAN pitch House of Elders roundtable show, then I think that would make a lot of people happy on both sides of the aisle.
I'm wearing my swag today.
The sheesh, man. By the way, Senate resolution.
I know.
To shame YouTube TV and Hulu into carrying C-SPAN, which, let me explain. A lot of people didn't understand this, at least in my Discord yesterday. So this would be worthwhile for people. If you subscribe to YouTube TV or Hulu, this is of worth to you. What's happening now with C-SPAN is back in the 80s when cable was first on the come up, they created a public affairs programming to deflect from the idea that cable would ruin public access. And so they all agreed, we're going to kick in money to a thing called C-SPAN. And they didn't put in a lump sum of money. They essentially said that the cable carriage costs, that is the economic model for all channels on cable, they would do a small version of that, a baby version of that, for a commitment to public affairs programming with C-SPAN. And the good news is, this is really a good example of private industry done well. It worked. C-SPAN's great. C-SPAN expanded. It was popular. It was popular in DC. It's popular with government fans the world over, up to and including everybody on this panel. And they're also, incidentally, the nicest people in not only media, but Washington in general, if not the world. We haven't done a competition. So here's the problem. People are now no longer subscribing to cable. And so that means that the lump sum of money, or the money that was going into C-SPAN, is now incrementally getting less. Because even though I believe their per customer fee from cable is like under $1, I think it's like, it may be like 75 cents or something per customer. As the number of customers go down, C-SPAN's money goes down. So that's why they've been raising money. That's why we asked you guys to donate to C-SPAN last year. But now C-SPAN is like, look, we know where the wind is blowing. More and more people are getting live television from these streamers. We would like to be carried on these streamers, and we would like a similar deal to what we got from the cable companies. What I have heard is that this could happen tomorrow if C-SPAN made one change. And that is allow commercials, because the way that the streamers work is they have a part of the a commercial break that happens that they can then sell their own commercials to plug into, right? C-SPAN is like, look, we can't do that. You can't be in the middle of a hearing and then all of a sudden an ad pops up in the middle of it and it's for, a flip-flop subscription because we spend too less money on flip-flops or whatever the hell ad gets sold there. We need to remain the same product that we've remained. So the battle right now is for YouTube TV, Hulu, Fubo, everybody else that does live television that does these contracts with channels to allow commercial-free C-SPAN on their platforms for the same small amount of money that the cable companies gave, which is a commitment to public affairs. That's the reason why this does need to be a pressure campaign, because this is not a money-making opportunity. They do just need to prove that they care about an element of public affairs. The good news for them is they could do it for a price that is probably less than what they pay for their lobbyists in their lunch budget. This is not a tremendous amount of money.
7 cents.
Yeah.
It's 7 cents out of your $72 subscription would be going to C-SPAN. They're charging as little as they possibly can.
And so that's what this is a fight about. So if you are communicating with YouTube, if you have YouTube, if you have Hulu, if you have any of these live streaming services that you get live television on, so you get CNN, you get Fox News, you get ESPN, all the places that are the biggest parts of your bill, for the record, communicate with them and say, I want my C-SPAN. They're going to leverage everything. To be totally honest, I think this is probably eventually just going to be part of some omnibus bill where they're going to have to leverage it as part of some antitrust with Google and whoever else, Disney that owns Hulu, to say all right, fine, we'll let you keep your intellectual property forever if you carry C-SPAN. It's going to be part of some crazy law, or they're going to react to it like that. But I think it's important. C-SPAN's a huge part of it, of our media landscape. If you are worried about the tenor of our modern conversation, there's one channel that is doing it right. They're just showing you what you need to see, and that's it. Obviously, we're in the tank for them. They featured my daughter in their donor email last week because, again, they're the nicest people in the world. When I left early from the DNC after hanging out with them during the conventions, they sent my daughter a onesie that said future C-SPAN fan and has young 60 on the back, because that's when she'd be old enough to run for president. So they're the nicest people on the planet, and we support them.
But that's not where the love came from. We loved C-SPAN to begin with.
And then they turned out to be the nicest people.
Yeah, yes. We had no idea. I started my show. My entire career, I owe to C-SPAN because I had cable at the time and was just watching the House floor. And so being able to watch that unfiltered was incredibly valuable to my life. And I think it's valuable to the country. And so that's why I'm such an evangelist for it. And what's happening right now in Congress is that members of Congress, specifically senators, so members of Congress that are respected, they are now getting on board with what we have been talking about. Yes. And they are now trying to pressure those companies. So in addition to pressuring YouTube and Fubo and Hulu, you can also keep calling your members of Congress because it's working.
Sign on to that bill. Yeah.
Yeah. What our efforts. And I honestly think that I know that our audience has stepped up and has been helping us with this effort. So it's it's working. Keep going, because we're actually seeing efforts in Congress to get C-SPAN covered. And it's one of the few bits of good news that I'm seeing right now in Congress. It makes me very happy.
Steel industry emails. Woman of Steel writes, and this is a long one, but bear with it because I think it was really good. I want to offer some anecdotal insight on the people that are appealing to with legislation preserving the American steel industry. I lived in Minnesota's Iron Range my entire life. My household would lose a huge chunk of its income if steel worker pensions fell through, and I understand why people are afraid. The truth is I'm afraid of losing these jobs, of the steel industry shrinking. I don't know how my family will get by. More than that, I'm afraid of what will happen to my community. This area is the only home I've ever had, and I know that iron mining is the heart of our culture. I know that when the mines close, the place I love, the place I've dug my roots into and built my life on is going to disappear. I understand why people react so strongly. You're not just talking about the loss of jobs or an idealized great America. You're talking about somebody's home and identity. Having said all that, I also understand that median household income here is half of the state average. We're completely dependent on an industry that mainly offers dirty, back-breaking, dangerous jobs. We live in a declining boom town with high crime rates and heavy substance abuse. Clinging to outdated industry isn't going to save us. It's only causing stagnation and slow rot. Progress requires loss. I hate it, but it's the truth. Our forefathers learned to adapt, and we will too. But if they happen to use taxpayer dollars to subsidize lost pensions, I will happily throw my libertarian ideals over the board to take that money. Don't judge me.
That's a really good email explaining the nuance of it all. Thank you for writing that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really well written email. I don't blame you on taking that, but I will fight you on it if that taxpayer footing comes out. I'd take it too, but I'll fight you if I'm the taxpayer.
Safeguards, right? We do have economic safeguards when it comes to foreign countries subsidizing things like steel. They're called countervailing duties, and much like anti-dumping duties, they are an additional duty that comes across that is done after evaluation looking at the country's investments and or subsidizing of a specific industry. This is very common when it comes to steel, bearings, automotive parts, and the like.
Good to know.
Vaccine schedule was our other topic last week. Google these docs, writes. I know Jen was skeptical of the motives behind the change of the COVID vaccine schedule. What is ironic is I think she might really, really like the doctors behind the change. Dr. Marty Makari and Dr. Vinay Prasad have both written books about ensuring profits aren't prioritized over patients. That includes discussing things like manipulative billing practices by hospitals and following evidence-based medicine to prevent spending on ineffective treatments that are costly or even harmful. Neither are anti-vaxxers, but both have discussed how they don't like pharmaceutical companies getting money for something that doesn't have solid evidence backing it, especially for young, healthy people.
It's not about the people. I think we focus too much on the people. It's about the policy and the actions, because there's people that will be one thing outside of power and then in power be something completely different. So I don't really spend a lot of time focusing on the people. Just like with, RFK Jr. I was hoping that he would be a different person when he got into office. But I'm focusing more on the policy. And what I'm seeing right now with that policy is that they are changing the vaccine recommendations in a way that people who know things are saying is not normal, and it makes me not trust their process. So I don't really give a shit who's doing it. I think what matters is what's being done.
Bon Voyage writes, the hospitalization rate for COVID is 0.9 per 100,000 per week. And they cite a CDC chart on that. Hospitalization rate by comparison for influenza is 128.1 per 100,000 per week. It wouldn't surprise me with numbers this low for the CDC to find COVID vaccines only make sense in high-risk environments like nursing homes. The COVID ship has truly sailed.
I don't know about that. Like, the problem is that since the beginning of the Trump administration, we know that they're not collecting data like they used to. They're hiding data that they have. This is something they did the first time Trump was president. We had COVID. So I quite frankly don't trust the numbers that we have right now. And we know that even during the Biden administration, they weren't testing the way they were in the beginning, because Biden also wanted COVID to just go away and stopped testing to the extent that they were back in 2021. So it's like, I don't know what the real numbers are. And I think that's part of the shame in it, in that I don't know what to trust. And so I'm sorry, but I don't trust those numbers you're giving me. And it's not your fault. I don't trust any of the numbers right now. I don't know what the status of COVID is. And I wish I had some way.
On that?
I mean, at this point, I'm looking more towards European governments because I saw firsthand how they handled it and I liked it a lot more. Like they were collecting data, they were giving it to the public. They were also being more realistic. So if you had COVID, you didn't have to get the vaccine. So a lot of the things that people were clamoring for here was the policy in Europe. I just feel like they were more level-headed about it. So I'm looking more internationally, but here in the United States, I don't trust anyone, unfortunately. Because even the private sector people, I don't know if they have access to the data anymore with the NIH being the way it is. So it's, I think, and the reason that I say this is like, there's people that I do trust who are on Instagram and TikTok saying like, we don't know where to get the data. So if they don't know, how the fuck am I supposed to know? Yeah. And it's not just COVID. It's a lot of different things that we don't have the data for anymore.
Sure. But let's circle COVID for right now. If you saw an EU source that was consistent with these numbers, that the hospitalization rate for COVID is under 1 per 100,000, and the hospitalization rate for influenza is 128.1 per 100,000, would that affect your thinking on putting the vaccines on a annual schedule?
I would be more likely to believe the numbers.
Yeah.
But I would also want to see that the process is no different from what the process usually is. So, you can have the numbers, but if you still have people that are making decisions on ideological bases, like I don't know.
Just shoot me, writes, I grew up in an OG anti-vax house. My parents and extended family have been anti-vax since the 80s. Unfortunately, I think that the thought that if anti-vax people hear vaccines are safe from somebody like RFK, they will see the light is extremely unlikely, unless they were on their ways to changing their mind already. The thing to understand about true believers is that it is a core component of their belief system. Much like a religion, they have faith that they are correct. And that belief isn't formed from empirical evidence. Rather, they know it to be true. For instance, to believe vaccines cause autism, you have to disregard tons of data to the contrary and believe that there is a coordinated effort by thousands and thousands of seemingly unrelated doctors to deceive the public. Since they aren't reaching the conclusion through evidence, when a source they previously trusted flips their stance, they can easily disregard them. They'll say something to the effect of RFK must be feeling threatened, or he doesn't really believe that. He just needs to misdirect while he does stuff behind the scenes, or whatever. Where you and I might look at evidence and then draw a conclusion, the true anti-vaxxer knows the conclusion is true, i.e. vaccines are bad, and then bends everything to support that conclusion.
I think that's a really good email to follow up what I was trying and failing to say, because it's like, you can have the evidence, you can have it from good sources, but if you have someone making a decision on a religious basis, kind of like this person was saying, like, no matter what you say, my family's not going to believe that vaccines work. If that's how the decisions are being made in our government, that's what I don't trust. It's not really about the empirical evidence, because I'm not sure I trust that they're using it. And that's the concern that I have.
Yeah. If I can focus more on the general persuasion side of this argument, because it is one that I do know pretty well, having been involved in the skeptic community, and my wife was in the adjacent atheist community, and it's something that I've thought a lot about, especially when it comes to people trusting institutions. And if we believe that there is a problem with institutional trust in America, and I do think that institutions have lost public trust by pretty much every available metric that we can find, then the issue isn't convincing the most hardened. It is convincing people that this emailer describes as people who are on the way of changing their mind. And I don't believe that that happens on a linear perspective. I believe that people for whom have a gut belief or have had an experience that has put them on a certain track are not hardened. So yes, while I am here to say, I don't believe that there's anybody that could tell your parents that vaccines are good, actually, I don't believe that that is a reason why you should try to shut off talking to a community that is skeptical of your position, especially when we are talking about something like government. Government should be for everybody, and you should be making a good faith effort to try to reach these people. And I do think that it is indeed more damaging when you treat them with scorn or with anger because they have rejected your very good arguments, than to say, hey, look, who can we go? Who can be the best voice that people would think have more credibility than somebody that they don't trust? That's my only general point. Again, it is my best case scenario version of appointments like RFK Jr. or Kash Patel or anybody like that, is that if they are saying a certain thing, then somebody who, again, might be on the way to changing their mind will be more swayed by that in a way that they would not by a James Comey or a Dr. Fauci, for whom has been thoroughly discredited in their mind. Universal burn care brings us on home. Justin, did you say you can wait 8 months when Jen mentioned universal health care during the COVID conversation? It's currently 12:32 Atlantic time. I could get an appointment at 1 p.m. at my local pharmacy with a booster along with some other injections I may need based on my health history. It would be $0 based on covered 80% by my private employer insurance and 20% on Medicare. If I didn't have employer insurance, it would have been covered 100% by my Medicare coverage. Universal health care bad is not the talking point I expected. Man, it's just jokes. Jesus. Like, you can't joke about universal healthcare. That's like the common complaint about universal healthcare with people who have it, is that sometimes it takes long for a certain thing. So I made a joke. Do I get mad when I mention Florida and people mention meth and gators and, banana hammocks and hookers? No, you just roll with it. Sometimes people get too fussy about this kind of stuff. I don't know. Was that out of bounds?
Justin, I just went to a book signing with Dave Barry. And he had a phrase in there that I really liked, where when he first started his career as a humor writer for the Miami Herald, I'm not saying this is the listener, by the way, but in general, Barry said that he encountered what he called the humor impaired, where he would write like a column where he'd be talking about fishing, and he'd be like, there's trout, sturgeon, and piccolos. And like people would write in really angry and be like, piccolos are woodwind instruments. They're not fish. Like, we get really mad at him. Yeah. It's like, that is definitely a cohort. Like, a lot of the political satire I do, those are the comments that I get on Twitter when we like, if I make a joke where I've got a cowboy hat and a gun or something, someone will get really mad. It's like, it was just a joke.
Tim, was that out of bounds?
I don't even remember what this person's talking about. So it was probably one of those things.
I said it while you were still talking.
You do that all the time. Half your jokey jokes, I don't even hear because I'm just trying to ignore you. So I think it was one of those situations where I'm like, he's not here. He's just a talking head. I'm going to ignore that thing.
I do it for the people. So the people can get a rich audio experience with subversive, shitty digs from somebody that is not being listened to. I'm like the little brother at the end of the table. I'm just saying.
Oh my God, you so are. You so are.
Yeah. We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. On PX3 this week, we've got two great guests. Number one, Catalyst is a firm that does the gold standard of digging through voting records, census data, and demographic analysis for basically the final word on election data. So they put out their report last week. We took a week to look at it, and me and Michael Cohen, the man who wrote the book on the modern political campaign, go through that data to talk about the myths that popped up around why the election went the way that it went and what people can learn about it going forward. That is on PX3, our Wednesday edition. Mr. Heaton, what's on the ORF?
So last week, I did a policy deep dive on housing. It was a very full meal, very wonky, and there was an attendant wonky full meal bonus episode. And I feel like I've earned myself a reprieve. And so I am doing a limited run series on assassinations, where I'm just researching assassinations other than the big two. The big two being Lincoln and JFK. I'm assuming everybody's familiar with them. This week, I kick off with Andrew Jackson, the first assassination attempt in American history. And by the end of it, Jackson is this like otherworldly specter of hell. It's amazing. The research I did of this guy, it's a quick episode. It's about half an hour. And like by the time somebody tries to shoot him, he is this gnarled, angry skeleton. He's 6'1", so slightly taller than me, and 140 pounds. He's a cadaver. He's just gristle and bone shards held together by sheer tyranny of will. And a guy takes a shot at him. So I go through a half an hour of basically just Jackson being a badass. He had 2 bullets in him by the time he died. He had a bullet lodged next to his heart. He couldn't lay down, so he'd sit bolt upright in a tent with his hand on a gun and catnap, because if he laid down, he'd cough up blood. Like, so this, like, he's just this grizzled fuck. So I'm doing that. Then on the bonus episode, I skip forward and I'm like, we all know Lincoln. Who's Garfield? Why'd somebody shoot him? And it's this weird goddamn story. The guy that shot Garfield got kicked out of a sex cult. And, got kicked out of a sex cult. Once brought a prostitute to his divorce trial to testify that he was an adulterer. Like, he's a really colorful character. And the gun he picked out, he chose on the basis of what would look good in a museum after he shot the president. So it's this weird thing. We get like I set the context of it of like what is happening in this era? Who the fuck is James A. Garfield? No one listening to the show has thought about James A. Garfield more than 15 seconds their entire life, because he's just this little blip in history. But like, what's going on? It's in the middle of the Gilded Age. There's this crazy period in American history where all government jobs are like party machines. So like the new president comes in and they just fire every Republican postal employee in the whole country. Like, everybody's just, nope, you're a Republican, get the fuck out. And so it's this big thing where there's all this going on. So that's the context. We're going to do that. And then next week, if people like it, I think I'm just going to keep it up and be like, okay, what about McKinley? And keep it going. So that's assassinations are what we're doing for this fortnight on the Political Orphanage.
That sounds fun.
It's fun.
Jen?
It's more fun than my job, because I'm annoyed with my job, because I had to look through the big, beautiful bill, and you've gotten a nice little preview about how I feel about it on this episode.
You were against it, as I recall.
Little bit. Yeah. And my spiciness with you, Andrew, really wasn't about you. I hope you understand that. I just fucking hate this bill. And I knew I wouldn't like it. I wasn't expecting it to be immoral and dangerous in the way that it is. I hate this bill. And so what Claire and I did is we went through it and picked out the 5 things that we think are just horrible and need to get out of it. And like, some of it is being covered pretty well by the mainstream. So like the AI thing, people like, that's getting out. The contempt citations being prohibited, that's getting out. But like the indefinite detention of children, people don't seem to know anything about that. The nursing home stuff, like there's just stuff in there.
How bad are these children?
They're just children of immigrants. And so they want to keep them in cages with their parents while they decide whether or not they're going to be deported. Because here's the thing. You want to do deportations of people that don't belong here. I can understand the sentiment. But what the Trump administration is doing is they're taking the amount of prison beds that we have for these immigrants from 40,000 to 100,000. They're trying to get that done as fast as they can. So the goal here is not necessarily to get them out of the country as fast as possible. They really want to keep these people in these cages. And I don't understand that. I think it's like some kind of sick deterrence where like the cruelty is the point. But because there's these sad stories going around of like, oh, the parents are getting locked up. What about the children? They want to lock up the children too. And if you're not allowed out of a place, it's a prison. I don't care if you call it a family residential center. That's just a propaganda term. These are fucking prisons. And so that's what this bill would do, is it would authorize the children to be kept indefinitely as well. And it's one of those things, we were talking about paths earlier, where I saw the path starting with Guantanamo, where it's like, we're going to lock up people without due process overseas. And now we're doing it here in the United States. We're doing it against immigrants, but like, this is the path that we're on. And now we're going to allow it with children. And this one is just not being talked about at all. I don't know if anybody knows about it. And I'm also afraid of the stuff that we didn't catch, because it's 1,028 pages. So I hate this bill. I hate everything about it. I hope not a single page of it becomes law. I do think that the tax cuts are the point, so I don't think there's much we can do about that. But these provisions that have absolutely nothing to do with the budget, if they're not taken out by the Senate parliamentarian, they should be taken out because we're screaming about them. And so that's what this episode's about. It's why I'm just livid about all of it. The way it's being covered, what they did, the fact that Republicans are being normalized. Joni Ernst being told like, hey, you're going to kill me if you take my Medicaid. And she's like, well, we're all going to die. What a bitch. Like, they just don't care. It's so mask off with how little they care. So I'm a big ball of anger. And so if you like me angry, go ahead and listen to Congressional Dish. But even if you don't like me angry, listen to it, because this one, you need to know what's in this atrocious
I'm surprised you did it. Normally you wait until they become law, right?
I do. Yeah. And I will tear it apart and like really do the details then. But this one was so bad. And we saw things that were in it where it's like, okay, like this, if I do this episode now, we at least have time to take action on these items, because there's, that I was kind of looking at the top 5.
An activist position.
Yeah. Because I mean, I don't think that I'm a partisan, but at this point, what the Republicans are doing is so heinous. Like there's just a whole list of things that they're doing to make our environment more toxic on a whole bunch of different levels. So if you live near ports or oil and gas wells or near roads, like they're going to make all of those environments more toxic. Like it is just a dangerous bill on every level. And so when I saw that and saw that this isn't about just dollars, it's not about the debt, tax cuts and like, stuff like that. When I saw that they were changing policy in a way that could make me sick, put all of us in danger, put children in cages, it was just like, I have to tell people about this while there's still time to do something about it. So it's, I did something different because it's just.
Is it going to get through the Senate? Like Rand Paul is saying there's 4 Republicans in the Senate that will oppose it.
It's going to get through. The question is when.
And what survives?
Will it? So number one, the next things that need to happen are the parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough, who once every 4 years comes out like the groundhog and makes her decisions on what is and is not actually budget relevant. That's what the fight is on this. So because it's a reconciliation package, it has to affect either the amount of money spent, the amount of money taken in, or the amount of money that is being spent proportional to stuff that is already being spent. Anything that is not is stripped out. And every time this happens, the next question is, okay, well, do you have to listen to her? The Republicans have said that they are going to listen to her. So what she says is going to go, although the Republicans are going to want to work the refs behind the scenes before she makes her official statement. Past that, that'll probably happen sometime in the next week. They are rolling out the Senate versions of this bill one by one. That'll eventually be all out by next week. The timetable is that by late June, it would all be out in the public, the Senate side of it. So at that point, you then see what's different between the bird bath, which is what the parliamentarian is going to do, the bird bath version of the Senate bill, and then how that differs from what was passed in the House, which is what Jen picked apart. Then it'll have to be reconciled on some level. There's a few different ways that you can do that. And then it will hit the president's desk if and when it is passed by everybody. So the question, really, Rand Paul,
or the House just eats it. The House might just pass what the Senate gives.
Sure, yeah. When I say reconcile, that's what I mean. Is at some point either someone's going to have to eat somebody else's crap sandwich, or there is a conference in which they go through it together and figure out exactly what it is, and then they both pass that. The timetable that people are talking about is either, if there's less of a fight, it would be late June that the Senate passes it, and then the House, whatever reconciliation happens there, or process happens there, then the president would sign it. He has put July 4th as a target of when he would like to sign it. Otherwise, it would, and I think this is probably more realistic, it's end of August, as they are at the precipice of the August recess. Then it would get passed and signed in. Rand Paul's big thing, he's down with the entire bill as is, except for it lifts the debt ceiling through basically Trump's presidency. So Trump doesn't want to deal with a debt ceiling fight. And so that's what Rand Paul's ask is, just take out the debt ceiling stuff. And he's a yes on it. He said that publicly. It's before the Elon fight happened. I was reading the room as like, yeah, there's a lot of people that are, Rand Paul's out there. No one else is. It's like Tom Tillis is out there saying,
Thomas Massey's the other one. But like,
he's in the House. He's in the House, right? So it's like in the Senate where you're talking about it, Rand Paul's saying, I got 4. One person's talking. Usually when you have a lot of work to do, 4 people are out there talking, saying, I'm a no, I'm a no, I'm a no. Now you got to do a little dance for everybody. You got to give them a little XYZ. So we'll see. I don't know. The fact that you haven't seen line in the sand stuff, and I don't know whether or not Elon going ham could go one way or the other. Usually the Senate does not like being told what to do. If you're yelling at the Senate is like, fuck you, I'll do the opposite. Because they are a very proud branch of government. So who knows how this is going to happen. Right now, it's Elon Musk retweeting Rand Paul, which doesn't usually historically mean that you are on the successful side of a bill being passed, because Rand is very often the one lone Republican who doesn't vote for Republican things.
I am waiting for the Senate parliamentarian, because a lot of the things that I saw that I highlighted in my episode have nothing to do with the budget. So I think they should be taken out. My concern is the Senate has already gone against the Senate parliamentarian because there were some resolutions that would cancel waivers that California has gotten from essentially California likes to get these waivers so that they can make stricter pollution guidelines for like cars. And so they had 3 of these waivers, and the Senate Republicans wanted to take those waivers away using the Congressional Review Act, which lets them kill regulations. But it was ruled that a waiver is not a regulation and therefore is not subject to the Congressional Review Act. And they fucking did it anyway. And so the fact that they have already
they say they found the right way to do it, but that is a controversial decision.
The whole thing is controversial. And it is because the Government Accountability Office also said you can't do this with waivers. And so it's not just the Senate parliamentarian. They're also overruling the GAO. So it's like, it's very wishy-washy. And so I think that they have proven, they being the Republicans, have proven that as a party, they are willing to throw the rules away, and the executive branch is just not following laws, to where I am not as comfortable as I would have been in the past being like, oh, well, this will get kicked out by the Senate parliamentarian. Because even though Thune says they're going to obey, I don't trust him. So yeah, there's a lot to watch here, both on Senate procedure and what makes it in this bill. It's all bad.
All right. Well, on that note, this is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, for Jen Briney and Andrew Heaton, saying, we're not wrong. Mosquitoes are.
Go bats.
Dog and Pony Show audio.